One of the next issues will be immigration reform, and specifically in the role of a senator, what sort of things would you like to see happen? And also, kind of dovetailing off the discussion around healthcare, what do we do with those undocumented folks who don't have healthcare? Are they entitled to be part of the co-op system, or are they? Do we make sure that they're covered? If for any reason, to make sure that anybody who has some sort of communicable disease doesn't spread it.
Well, the Texas senators should be fully engaged in issues involving immigration reform. Too often in the past, I've gotten the sense that they just assume the issue went away because it's so divisive within the Republican Party. But I want to do what's right for Texas, not for one wing of one political party. And Texas demands realistic policies on immigration. Bring people out of the shadows, regulate the work relationship, have secure borders using all the technology that we have, but secure in a way that doesn't back up and disrupt lawful visits and commerce, and that recognizes that we do have a large workforce that has been here for many, many years, raised kids that are American citizens, paid taxes. People who have broken the law to get into this country should be in the back of the line if there's any path to citizenship or permanent residency relative to those who've obeyed the laws. And we ought to have some way of identifying who's in the country, be they citizen or non-citizen alike, that's less hard to forge, that protects people's privacy, that is non-intrusive. But I can tell you, somebody who one of the biggest police departments in the country reports to, that we have citizens and non-citizens who use aliases, and we arrest them, and we have a hard time figuring out who they are unless they've committed a serious crime and have a fingerprint on the national database. So those are some of the elements of immigration reform in our country that bring people out of the shadows, to regulate workers, to secure borders in consultation with border communities, concentrate on the narco traffickers and human traffickers.
Do we keep a wall going? Do we keep building that wall along the border?
Well, I think it ought to be based not on what, I think, and not on the basis of what some politician who's never been a border patrol person thinks. I think it ought to be done in consultation with the local communities and with people who are involved in a reasonable enforcement of the laws. Is what can we best do to accomplish two goals: allow lawful trade and commerce between the two countries to continue, which benefits and creates jobs in both countries, and creating some jobs in Mexico is important too, because if you don't do that, then we're going to be faced with these issues even greater in the future. And second, to make sure that we stop the flow of guns, drugs, violent criminals who couldn't get an entry visa between the borders. So we got to balance those needs, and it should be a professional judgment based on the consultation with the people who are there. I can tell you this, that I have just this last weekend talked to some people who were experts in border issues, and their point was, hey, it's a huge border. There's different topography along the border. There's different technologies you want to use at different places, and they were expressing frustration that there were a lot of people in D.C. who seemed to know everything just because they got elected to office.
Do you put together specifically an advisory board, as you would with the doctors, with just citizens or even grassroots organizations that have been dealing with border issues, specifically to get a gauge as to where they're coming from while you weigh those options with law enforcement and other entities? Well,
yes, with those within border communities in particular. I think in border communities, and the problem you have with advisory boards, there's pluses and minuses. I've used them very effectively as mayor, but sometimes when you appoint, even if you appoint 50 people, then the next 50 people say, hey, why am I excluded from the process? So I think it needs to be done in connection with the border communities. Too often they're being talked to and not talked with. Let me give you an example. mayors along the border would like more police funded by the COPS program. And because, you know, they're concerned about crime. Actually, some of our border communities like El Paso, Laredo have very low crime rates. But, you know, they do know they're on the border. And they, like many cities, have budget crunches. They don't want to cut back on police. And yet, they didn't get funding from the COPS grants, the grants to put more police on the streets.
Now,
and then
are those the burn grants?
Yeah, there's burn grants and COPS grants. Burns can be used for technology, DEAs, police, they're more flexibility. And the COPS grants can put police on the street. President Clinton started the program. It helped. Bush discontinued it. President Obama have revived it. And most of these communities would far better see a local police officer on the street who lived in the community than they would see some military or National Guard unit that's stationed in their, city saying that we're going to secure the border. That's like, they feel like that it's alarmist and it's treating the border communities as if they did not know how to keep their communities safe.
You know, one of the programs that seem to be happening in various parts of the country, including your city here in Houston, is the use of local law enforcement, the police, to to act in conjunction with ICE, or to, in some ways, even serve as ICE, agents, so to speak. First, is that a good thing? Do you want to see more of that, or is that something that needs to be refined? And in the role of senator, what would be something that you would push along that?
Well, Houston, like other big cities, for the same reasons, does not allow its police to serve as civil immigration officers. If we did that, our citizens and all residents would be a lot less safe. You would have fewer police investigating crimes. You would have fewer police that were on patrol if the federal government could just expect us to do the routine job of immigration enforcement. What I have done and what should be done throughout the country is that when we do have somebody that's does a major narcotics crime, a violent crime, serious property crimes, and they are a non-citizen, regardless of what they're legally here or not, then they should be convicted, and at the end of their sentence, they should be deported. There's plenty of people who are willing to work, and they're just working every day, sometimes 2 jobs a day, who are obeying all the laws of this country to make space for those who violate the rights of others.